Every man talks like he's destined for greatness until it's time to shut up, disappear, and actually build it. Most of you crave noise, validation, and applause, but the truth is, the real transformation happens in silence. So here's the harsh truth. If you're not willing to vanish and do the work when no one's watching, you'll stay average forever. The man who operates on discipline is unstoppable. He doesn't wake up and wait to feel motivated. He doesn't scroll his phone looking for a quote or a video to tell him to move. He already made the decision the night before. He doesn't care if it's raining, if he's tired, if he's sore. He doesn't operate on mood, he operates on mission. That's the difference between someone with a top G mentality and someone stuck in mediocrity. The average man lives like a slave to his emotions. He wakes up and checks how he feels. If he's not in the mood, he hits snooze. If he's tired, he skips the gym. If he's uninspired, he does nothing. He thinks life is supposed to cater to how he feels, but reality doesn't care about your feelings. Results don't care either. Discipline is what separates the wolves from the sheep. A top G doesn't need motivation because he has made discipline a part of his identity. It's automatic. He doesn't rely on emotional energy to take action. He trains his body when it's weak. He reads when it's boring. He works when he's tired. Why? Because the job needs to get done. He understands that greatness doesn't ask how you feel, it just demands work. People stuck in the average mindset think successful men are lucky. They think they were born motivated or inspired every day. No, the top G has simply killed the habit of negotiating with weakness. He doesn't ask himself, do I feel like it? He doesn't give his brain the space to argue. He just moves. People forget that every decision is a vote. Each time you do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it, you're casting a vote for the man you want to become. The top G stacks votes daily. The average man keeps voting for weakness, for comfort, for avoidance. He waits for the right moment, not realizing that the right moment is forged, not found. The world rewards the man who acts regardless of his emotional state. That's why the disciplined man wins. Because while everyone else is sitting still waiting to feel ready, he's already 100 steps ahead. Top Gs understand this one principle: the man who conquers himself can conquer anything. He trains his mind like a weapon. His emotions might scream, but his actions don't flinch. He's not robotic, he's mastered. He can feel pain, doubt, stress, but none of that stops the execution. That's what makes him dangerous. That's what makes him effective. Discipline becomes a shield. It protects him from the trap of comfort. It keeps him sharp in a soft world. It separates him from the crowd that's paralyzed by their own weakness. Average minds are built around escape. They seek shortcuts, hacks, dopamine hits, anything to avoid discomfort. They never build power because they never build consistency. And there's no consistency without discipline, no greatness without routine, no success without sacrifice. The top G welcomes the repetition, the boredom, the grind, because he understands the long-term payoff. He sees the bigger game. He isn't distracted by temporary discomfort. He's focused on permanent dominance. The average man is so busy trying to feel good today that he ruins his entire future. He's owned by his emotions. That's why he never escapes the cycle. That's why he watches others win while he stays stuck. Discipline is the death of excuses, it's the death of weakness, and it's the beginning of transformation. Not once a week, not when it's convenient, every single day. Most people are allergic to pressure. They run from it, they avoid it, they complain about it. But that's why they stay average. Pressure is the breeding ground of greatness. A top G doesn't just tolerate pressure, he seeks it. He lives inside it. He understands that without pressure, there is no transformation. Diamonds are made under pressure. Warriors are built in fire. Comfort creates weakness. Pressure creates power. The average mindset is obsessed with avoiding anything uncomfortable. They say things like, take it easy, don't burn out, you deserve a break. But the ones who truly rise, they thrive in chaos. They perform when it's hard. They don't look for easy, they look for edge. The top G understands that pressure is the separator. It reveals the weak, it tests the strong. Most men collapse under it because they've never conditioned themselves to handle it. They panic when things go wrong. They break down at the first sign of struggle. They've been trained to believe that stress is something to avoid, that hardship is bad, that pressure is a problem. But the truth is, pressure is the proving ground. You want lead, you want power, you want respect, then you better be able to handle weight on your shoulders and still walk like a king. Average minds crumble because they have no foundation, no internal armor. Their confidence is surface level. It disappears the moment things get difficult. But a man with a top G mentality is calm in the storm. His mindset isn't built on hype or motivation. It's built on preparation. He's been through hard things. He's conditioned his nervous system. He doesn't run from stress. He breathes through it. He commands his thoughts. He doesn't react emotionally. He analyzes, he calculates, he acts with control. That kind of discipline under pressure creates a man that others respect, fear, and follow. The problem with most people is they think pressure is something you wait to face when you're ready. They don't realize that you become ready through the pressure itself. No one becomes strong in the absence of resistance. You don't grow confidence by avoiding failure. You grow confidence by walking into the fire and realizing you can survive it. That's how the top G thinks. Every challenge is a sharpening stone. Every obstacle is a gift. Every setback is an opportunity to harden your mind. He uses pressure like fuel. The world throws chaos at him, and he turns it into power. Most people think they want success, but what they really want is the fantasy version of success. The one with the cars, the attention, the lifestyle, but none of the weight, none of the stress, none of the responsibility. That's why they never get it, because the cost is pressure and they're too soft to pay it. The top G pays it in full. He embraces the weight. He doesn't complain about being tired, busy, overwhelmed. He says, good, because that means the game is real. That means he's growing. That means he's stepping into the kind of life that the average man will never touch. Oh, pressure will expose you. It will either reveal your strength or highlight your weakness. But either way, it's a gift, because it gives you clarity. It shows you who you are and what you're made of. Most people are running from that truth, but the top G runs toward it. He wants the test. He wants the challenge, because he knows pressure is the price of the throne. And the ones who can carry it without folding, they're the ones who end up owning everything. Discipline isn't sexy. It's not exciting. It doesn't give you an instant hit of dopamine like scrolling on your phone or binge watching garbage content. But discipline is the foundation of power. The top G operates with ruthless discipline, while the average mind floats through life chasing pleasure. That's the real gap. It's not talent, it's not intelligence, it's consistency, focus, and the ability to say no to what weak men say yes to. Every day, you're making decisions that shape your life. Whether to get up early or hit snooze, whether to train or make excuses, whether to work on your mission or waste time on distractions. The top G chooses the hard path every single time. Not because he enjoys it, but because he understands what it builds in him. The average man is reactive. He wakes up and lets the world dictate his day. He lets his emotions lead him. If he doesn't feel like doing the work, he doesn't. If something is uncomfortable, he quits. His life is ruled by how he feels instead of by what he wants to build. That's why he stays broke. That's why he's frustrated. That's why no one respects him. The top G doesn't operate like that. He follows a code. He does what needs to be done whether he feels like it or not. His habits are locked in, his structured, his energy is managed. He doesn't rely on motivation because he's trained his body and mind to follow command. Discipline builds confidence. When you make a promise to yourself and follow through, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. Most people have zero confidence because they break promises to themselves every day. They say they'll wake up early, but they don't. They say they'll stop eating junk, but they cave in. They say they'll start that business, but they never move. And every time they fail to act, they lose a piece of their self-respect. That's why they walk around insecure, jealous, bitter. Not because the world is against them, but because they betrayed themselves too many times. The top G doesn't live like that. His word is law. When he says he's going to do something, it gets done. That's where power comes from. That's how self-respect is built. Most people have a comfort-based operating system. They ask, what's easiest? What feels good right now? The top G has a results-based system. He asks, what gets me closer to my goal? What builds my empire? That small shift is everything. It rewires how you see time, energy, relationships, and habits. And once you start living with discipline, you gain something priceless: momentum. Momentum separates winners from losers. The average guy never builds momentum because he's always starting over. He works hard for a few days, then falls off. He trains for a week, then disappears. He's inconsistent, and that's why he loses. The top G compounds his efforts. He stacks wins. And over time, that creates an unstoppable force. Discipline isn't just about work ethic. It's about emotional control. It's about not reacting when people try to provoke you. It's about being strategic instead of impulsive. It's about doing what's effective, not what's comfortable. Discipline sharpens your mind, it strengthens your body, it refines your vision, it transforms you from a fragile man into a focused machine. Most people will never know that version of themselves because they quit when it gets hard. They never give discipline the time it needs to work. But those who commit, those who lock in, those who keep showing up when it's boring, painful, lonely, they rise, they dominate, they become dangerous in the best way possible. The average mindset seeks approval. It needs validation. It craves applause, likes, praise, and attention. It constantly looks outward, wondering what others think, trying to fit into the mold society carved for the weak. That's why it's average, because instead of being obsessed with results, it's obsessed with opinions. A man who can't think for himself will never rule anything. The world controls him. Social media tells him what to wear, how to act, what success looks like. His identity is built on what others might say. So he never takes bold steps. He hesitates, he doubts, he folds under pressure. He's not dangerous, he's predictable. But the man with a high value mentality doesn't operate like that. He's not looking for permission to be great. He doesn't need likes, followers, or applause to know his worth. He creates his own standard, he sets his own bar, and it's always higher than everyone else's. While the average guy is seeking approval, the top G is stacking results. While the average man is talking, the high value man is doing. This is the separation. Most people don't move until someone tells them it's okay. They're stuck in fear of judgment, rejection, and failure, so they play it safe. But safety is a cage. It looks like comfort, but it's a trap. And the more you feed it, the weaker you become. You need to understand that nobody cares about your feelings. Nobody's going to hand you a crown because you're a good guy. Life rewards the bold, the disciplined, the relentless. If you're always worried about what others think, you're already defeated. Every powerful man that built something great was called crazy before he was called a genius. They laughed before they respected him. But he didn't stop because of their noise. He kept building, kept grinding, and now he's the one they quote, follow, and worship. That only happens when you cut off the need for approval and start focusing entirely on execution. Most men can't take criticism because they tie their self-worth to external opinions. They crumble at the first sign of rejection. That's weakness. That's emotion ruling logic. And emotion is the enemy of performance. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable when you break out of the mold. You're supposed to be doubted. That's the test. Most fold under it. They retreat into average. But the man with vision, with a code, with fire in his gut, he uses criticism as fuel. He gets sharper, colder, more dangerous. He starts realizing that the more people criticize, the more he's on the right path, because the masses only hate what they're too afraid to become. The man who seeks approval will always be a slave. His confidence is borrowed. His decisions are controlled. He can't lead, can't risk, can't dominate, because deep down he fears rejection more than he desires success. And that's a fatal flaw. The top G doesn't care if people understand him. He doesn't explain himself. He moves in silence, stacks wins, and lets the results speak so loud the world has no choice but to listen. He's not distracted by noise because he knows what he's building. That clarity is power. That certainty is rare, and it's built through battle, not comfort. If you want to rise, you have to let go of the need to be liked. You have to become immune to opinions. People are going to talk anyway. Whether you win or lose, they'll have something to say. So you might as well win on your own terms. Approval is a drug for the weak, and the moment you stop chasing it, you start becoming someone real, someone sharp, someone dangerous. You stop following and start leading. You stop reacting and start deciding. That's when you shift from being another background character in someone else's story to becoming the main character in your own. The average person has mastered the art of wasting time. They glorify distraction, indulge in comfort, and worship entertainment. They wake up already behind and go to bed having done nothing that truly mattered. Scrolling, binge watching, talking, complaining. These are their rituals. They disguise laziness as self-care and procrastination as patience. Their schedule is chaos, no structure, no priority, just noise. Their days are ruled by impulse, not intention. And they wonder why nothing changes, but they refuse to take ownership of their time because deep down they fear what happens when they truly face themselves without distraction. Meanwhile, the man with a top G mentality understands that time is his most valuable currency. He treats it like gold. Every second has weight. Every hour is an opportunity to move closer to dominance. He doesn't waste his energy on meaningless activities or people who drain him. He doesn't let others dictate his schedule. His life is designed, not reactive. He wakes up with purpose. His time is guarded. He knows exactly where he's going and what must be done to get there. He doesn't need motivation because discipline is his foundation. And discipline is what average men never develop, which is why they stay broke, soft, and lost. The average mindset treats time as infinite. They say, I'll start tomorrow as if tomorrow is guaranteed. They live like they're immortal, pushing goals back week after week, month after month, year after year. They talk big, but do nothing. And when they finally realize how much time they've wasted, it's too late. Regret hits harder than failure ever could. But they chose that path. They chose comfort over commitment. They chose ease over excellence. Time punishes the ungrateful, and most people don't respect time until it's running out. Top G's think in years but act in hours. They see the long game but move with urgency. That's what separates the high value from the herd. They understand compound returns on effort, focus, and repetition. Small steps done consistently over time create explosive results, but that requires patience and persistence, which the average man lacks. He wants everything now without sacrifice. That's why he never builds anything lasting. He jumps from trend to trend, chasing shortcuts, chasing dopamine. He's always busy but never productive, always starting, never finishing, always planning, never executing. Every second you spend distracted is a second someone else is getting sharper, richer, more powerful. While you're watching, they're working. While you're doubting, they're building. That's the game. And the clock doesn't care about your excuses. There are no timeouts, no retries, no mercy. You either use your time like a weapon or you get used by it. The world doesn't reward effort, it rewards execution. You're not owed anything for being busy. Results are the only language power understands, and that means mastering your schedule, killing distraction, and being obsessed with efficiency. If your calendar isn't locked in, your future isn't either. Every minute should serve a purpose. Every day should be a mission. When your time is optimized, your life levels up. But most will never feel that power because they can't delay gratification. They trade purpose for pleasure and then wonder why they're stuck. Winners isolate themselves to focus. They cut the noise, build in silence, and show the world the outcome, not the process. That's the difference. It's not talent, not luck. It's what you do with your time when no one's watching. That's where separation begins. That's where transformation is built, not in talk, but in time management. The average man surrounds himself with noise, constant talking, endless scrolling, shallow opinions, distractions from people who add no real value to his life. He feels a compulsive need to be seen, heard, and validated by others. That's because his self-worth is built on external approval. He needs applause, he needs recognition. And in chasing that approval, he leaks power. He shares every move, every thought, every goal, telling the world what he's going to do rather than proving it in silence. That's a weakness disguised as confidence. Real power doesn't broadcast, it builds, it watches, it executes in silence. There's a reason powerful men move in silence. They understand that revealing too much invites interference. When you speak too soon, people will plant seeds of doubt. They'll project their own fear, jealousy, and limitations onto your goals. They'll give advice they don't follow. They'll laugh at what they can't imagine doing themselves. And if you're weak, you'll absorb their nonsense. You'll start to question your own path. That's how dreams get killed, slowly, by 1,000 opinions. That's why the smart man keeps his circle tight and his mouth tighter. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Not everyone should know your next move. Silence protects progress. In silence, there are no distractions. There's clarity, there's focus. When you stop talking, you start building. When you stop explaining, you start executing. That's when real momentum kicks in. The average man spends more time talking about what he's going to do than actually doing it. He performs for the internet, performs for his circle, performs for people who don't even care. And that performance becomes a prison. He's addicted to attention, so he can't grind in the dark. He can't work in silence because silence doesn't feed his ego. But the man on the path to greatness doesn't care about ego. He only cares about evolution. When you move in silence, you don't waste time arguing, justifying, or defending your ambitions. You let your results speak. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You already know who you are. That's strength. That's discipline. That's power. And while the world is watching, liking, sharing, and talking, you're building. It exposes who's really doing the work and who's just pretending. And most people hate silence because it forces them to confront their own inactivity. So they talk more, post more, distract more, anything to avoid facing themselves. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategy. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're focused. You don't need to respond to every message, go to every event, or explain every choice. You're allowed to disappear for 6 months and come back unrecognizable. That's not being rude, that's being dangerous. To dominate. And when you reappear, they won't even recognize you. That's the goal. Let your absence create curiosity and your presence command respect. That's the difference between moving with purpose and moving for attention. Most men are too loud to ever win. They can't shut up long enough to master themselves. They can't disappear long enough to grow. They crave applause more than results. And that's why they stay stuck. Loud lives are rarely powerful. The ones who win are the ones you barely see coming. The ones who are silent in the gym, silent in the grind, silent in the storm, and then explosive when the time is right. So stop talking, stop explaining, stop announcing, start building. Let your silence speak volumes. Let your work echo through every room they said you'd never make it in. Let them talk while you transform. If you want to level up, evolve, and become a man worth remembering, stop running your mouth and start running your life. The world doesn't need your updates, it needs your results. Every second spent explaining yourself is a second stolen from your discipline. While the average man seeks attention, the high-value man seeks growth in silence. So disappear, go, shut it all off and lock in. Because when you re-emerge, the silence will have spoken louder than any words ever could. That's how power is earned. That's how respect is commanded. That's how you win. Quietly, relentlessly, completely.